Hello, everyone, and welcome back. Today we are looking at the Citadel Cruiser. This is a ship that was designed and created for the Wizards of the Coast Star Wars back in 2001. Um, we do get some appearances of this from For Fun and Profit, The Living Force, which I believe was a um, uh, I want to say a campaign book, but an adventure module. They did have it in a jigsaw puzzle. We have Gem of Alderaan, Horning Inn, which I think is a reference to one of the creatures. Um, Beyond the Rim, Mask of the Pirate Queen. And Wikipedia has taken all their information from Starships of the Galaxy, which is the 2001 uh, Wizards of the Coast Star Wars book itself. And then we also have the trading card game. Apparently, it made a couple appearances in there. Um, we have Standoffs, which again is Wizards of the Coast. So really, this was all meant for the role playing game. So what we have here, um, the ILK or ILH-KK Citadel class civilian cruiser, also known simply as the Citadel class cruiser or just simply the Citadel Cruiser. It was a heavily armed and armored transport built by Cosier during the final years of the Galactic Republic. So, the history for the design, this was designed in response to the increasing fears among the wealthy that the star travel was no longer safe. The Citadel found a wide following among diplomatic parties, wealthy merchants, and business owners, and mid level military officers who were looking for a capable and defensive craft, but who couldn't afford being on a capital class ship. Citadels were introduced during the last years of the Galactic Republic, with their popularity peaking during the Clone Wars before waning during the Galactic Civil War. By the time the rebellion, citadels were no longer common luxury craft, and many had been repurposed into minor warships by the Rebel Alliance, Corpus Sector Authority, pirates, and other freebooters. So, um, I'm going to kind of pass over the specifications because we're going to kind of look through all this stuff on what we have for our D6 version of this. Um, Behind the scenes, we have a notable debate is how exactly the Citadel lands on solid ground. So, we have wings underneath here. The the interesting thing, and I've thought about this for bringing other like Star Wars into Star Trek into Star Wars and stuff like that. We have mooring platforms and towers and stuff like that. Um, the fact that a company that's making this, they may also have extending arms to help lift the craft if they have to really change out motors or whatever else, so it can no longer hover on its own. Those are possibilities in the world of Star Wars. So, really, a ship like this could very well work. Yeah, it seems kind of like a workaround for certain things or whatever. Um, the other thought is, if you take a or a Star Trek angle on this, they might be building this out in low orbit, high orbit, whatever you want to call it, out in space or something like that. Or maybe they install the wings later. Who knows? Okay. With all this stuff, it's all science fantasy. Um, so we just take it for what it is. All right. So with that being that, I'm flipping my screens on, not that you're seeing this. All right, so this is from Kaisir Connoisseur. Again, it's another one of those names. I'm probably going to murder it 50 million times before I will ever have it correct. All right, so this is on page 79. If you do have the Starships of the Galaxy book, this is a civilian transport, or at least it was when it started. So that's probably the stats that we're going to be having here. This is the base civilian model, not a modified or anything else. So in a D6, this is considered a starfighter scale. It's 36 meters in length. Can have a crew of 1 or 2. We can carry up to 14 passengers and can carry about 50 metric tons of cargo. Has 6 months worth of consumables and goes for about 205 or 205,000 credits. Has a hyperdrive of ×2, and it does have a nav computer. What it doesn't show is a backup hyperdrive. So, because this is coming from one game system, putting it into another, you can debate as to whether or not you would have a backup hyperdrive on this or not. Completely up to you. Um, Maneuverability being a 1D+1. This is a transportation vessel, not a combat vessel, so it does make a lot of sense. It is fairly quick at a space of 7 in an atmosphere of 1,000 kilometers an hour. I'm going to throw it in here. Anyone that's, I'll say a lot better um, aeronautically versed or whatever. We do have a lot of wing area. Of course, they're standing up, going up and down. Honestly, I don't know how good or bad that really makes things. I'm just going to say it's got a lot of wing area. So maybe that actually works. Maybe it doesn't. I don't know. I'm not a aeronautical professional or anything else. So we do have a hull of 4D. So it is a very tough little ship. Has shields of 2D. So that's really about where we would like to see a standard shields if we could. Maybe even upgrade it a little bit more. So you have a really good fighting chance with your shields, plus your hull of a 4D. So she can take a little bit of abuse. Looking at our sensor packet here, we have passive sensors being at 1.5 kilometers. Of course, it's I don't really talk about this being a 0D, 1D, 3, 18, whatever it is. That's how good the computer is for helping you try and figure out what you have. So you can see like a blip out there, but are you able to figure out what it is or not? That's on you. So the computer itself is rudimentary. I don't really talk about that. I just talk about how far out you can typically scan. So passively, you can scan out to 1.5 kilometers. Actively, you can scan 3 kilometers. Search, you can do a 5 kilometer scan, and a focus is only 200 meters. So, like I said, I don't typically go on the other, whether our passive, is there something there? If you have essentially everything pretty much powered down, you're not actively scanning to say, hey, I'm here. You can passively scan for 1.5 kilometers, but it's just a rudimentary, is there something there or not, like a little blip on a screen. Not saying, hey, this is what it is, whatever else. That's really what we're talking about here. And then when you do an active scan, it'll probably tell you more information. And then if you're doing a search, like, is there life signs in there, stuff like that. We have weapons. We have 2 dual heavy ion cannons. So if we come up here a little bit, on the sides, those are our dual ion cannons. In this drawing here, I've seen somewhere it looks like there's a cannon on the top as well as something on the bottom here. This does have a 2 laser cannons that are fire linked. Of course, it always likes to separate the fire. I don't know why. And that's at a 1D. Damage of 5D. Our ion cannons, which I didn't cover, is a 1D fire control. So it's a little bit more rudimentary for our fire control all the way through. Damage of 5D is pretty good for civilian craft. Our laser cannons are front mounted, so it could be anywhere. Whether you want to say it's on the spine here behind the cockpit, or if it's on the cockpit, wherever you want to say it is, I don't have any issue with it. But it is forward facing. It's fire linked going out the front at 5D damage, and we have one concussion missile tube with 12 missiles. Again, 1D for fire control and 8D for damage. So all of our concussion missile launchers or missiles do 8D. Our photon torpedoes, or is it photon or proton? I'm getting genres mixed up here. They're doing 90. I know that. And that's where our differences kind of come in here. So we do have a nice layout of the ship. Now, I did see that somebody else had done a layout and they had two different levels on here. Um, this is the one that was actually in the book. So this is the one that I'm going to go with. Okay. So we do have a cockpit for 4 people. Only really needs one, maybe two. Your extra people are probably going to be taken care of, looking at your sensors, um, someone else maybe for communications, whatever. But you could probably do all that, on your own and just kind of do a glance over, no big deal. We do have a lounge for our crew. This is all in the cockpit area. This is all our crew area. So, that way they have a little crew. This is where it would be kind of nice having 2 people. You can trade off. If something actively happens, you can have both people up there. And of course, then we have double bunks here for captain, first officer, maybe some crew members. If you're doing long runs, you're probably going to run this with a crew of 4. That way you can change off. Everybody's staying wide-eyed and bushy-tailed here. We have a bunch of cargo lockers for all of our passengers, and after that we have all of our seating here. So and we have like some drop-down passenger seats. It's like taking a bus, right? So that's what you're really looking at it as. And of course, then we start getting back here. We have some generators and that aft and or in the aft, port and starboard. My mind wants to work here this morning. And of course, we have refreshers and stuff like that. Ion turret control and power on the one side, actually on both sides. So this is for our ion cannons. Of course, we also have, if you can follow the mouse, I don't know what you're looking at this on, if you're just listening to it. Back beyond all that, there's an outline here that could be all of our extra stuff for, wiring, engine stuff, and everything else that we need to actually run. Now, this is where a little discrepancy is going to come in here. We do have escape pods. We have some 2-person and single-person escape pods. We have an airlock in the back. One of the things that they do show in our picture, so this is the original picture and the original artwork, we're showing a boarding tube going right on over. So somewhere in here, they're suggesting that there should be a boarding tube. But when we look at the actual layout, we don't have a boarding tube on the side. What we actually have is a boarding in the rear. So you take that for what it is. Maybe this is an arm, or maybe it's just how my eyes are looking at it. Maybe this does extend towards the back, and it just looks like it's more on the side, which I think is what was originally proposed. But then when they came up with this floor layout, they weren't thinking about it. They were thinking about it in a very other logical way of how do we do this. Because remember, it is supposed to be able to carry 50 tons worth of cargo. So how do you do that? All this is going to be open to interpretation. So maybe we don't have some of the cargo lockers. Maybe that's part of the boarding ramp. You knock some of this out. It's all open to interpretation, like I said. So, but that's the ship we have. It's a beautiful ship. Interesting design. Like I said, people are debating how are you going to land this thing if you're not in some big city, or if you have to take the engines offline, suddenly it can't power itself to kind of hover. How do you do this? There's got to be ways to do it. It's all science fantasy. Maybe we have arms that would extend out to hold this thing. Maybe this arm here is enough to properly hold it. I don't know. Hard to say. But People can debate this until we're blue in the face, and then maybe we'll still never have a true answer. So, but it is an interesting design, interesting ship, and another one of those ships that most people don't really get to see unless you're involved in the role playing game of this. So that's why I enjoy bringing this to you. And with that, I hope you're enjoying this as much as I enjoy bringing this to you. Have a nice day, and we'll see you in the next video.